The numbers from Germany on hotel bookings and occupancies were mildly optimistic or gave cause for optimism during June and July, which saw an increase of around 22% from month to month. And that was a trend that was followed across Europe. But that, of course, was at the height of the Northern Hemisphere summer. Now occupancy rates in hotels are ticking back up. June is down 77% from last year. July down only 52% from last year. You see the numbers. Best Western has more than 4,500 hotels across 100 different countries and territories. The CEO is David Kong, who joins me from Phoenix, Arizona, joins me via Skype. David, it is good to talk to you again on this. You're a vast hospitality company. And I know you've seen better numbers in June, July and August. But what happens now as we go into winter, September, October, November? How worried are you?
Well, you're right. We saw a pretty decent recovery right after Memorial Weekend. However, that was compromised almost immediately by the resurgence of the virus. And so the recovery has been, I would say, anemic. The Labor Day weekend was decent, but now, as you mentioned, as we head into the fall, it's again very disconcerting. And the reason is usually in the fall, the leisure business is replaced by the business, corporate travel business. And this year, because of the pandemic, a lot of companies are still closed. They are still closed their offices and they're not allowing their travelers to travel. So the corporate segment is going to be very challenged. On top of it, there's almost no meetings or convention business to speak of. So the fall is going to be a very difficult season for us. And winter is traditionally slow for industry. So the next 6 months would be very, very challenging for industry.
As you look for assistance, obviously you've circled your own wagons, raised money, drawn down lines of credit, as I always say, shaken the sofa and got everything you like. But what more are you going to need? Who are you going to look to help you get out of this?
Yeah, so let me just describe the situation. For most of the hotels, they're owned by families and small business. They are small businesses. They're hardworking men and women trying to make an honest living. And so they have limited means. They have really poured their life savings into the business. And now with PPP money having run out and loan forbearance coming to an end, they are really in dire straits. They really need assistance. And I'm very concerned that many hotels would actually go under. They are not going to be able to make their loan payments. And this is very, very distressful situation and very sad because, as I mentioned, these are small businesses and they are the heart and soul of many communities. And in terms of assistance, I think the Congress really need to stay attuned to the needs here. It's very sad that they can't work something out for the small businesses. And so many of them are suffering so tremendously. It would be wonderful if they can just work out some compromise to provide some liquidity to these small businesses and help them survive this pandemic. An extension of the PPP with additional funds would be extremely helpful. And aside from that, I think the government should also think about how they prevent the frivolous lawsuits that are already being filed. There are hundreds of lawsuits already filed against hotels. And these are really frivolous lawsuits. Under the guise of the pandemic and people catching it, staying at our hotels. And it's a sad situation because these frivolous lawsuits are really filed by unscrupulous lawyers that are hoping for a settlement. There's really no merit to these lawsuits.
From your perspective, in terms of if you like, you are the franchise, you could be looking at the I won't say wholesale destruction, but certainly serious damage being done to your network of properties, offerings at different grades, which has taken years to put together. And that could ultimately put you at a great disadvantage in the future.
Well, that is true, but that's happening to all the major hotel companies. There's a reason, you look at the newspaper and Hilton and Marriott are shutting hundreds of and thousands of jobs. And I mean, who is not suffering through this pandemic? And you're right, all these
Right.
businesses took many, many years to build, and it could all evaporate if we don't get some help from our
Okay.
Congress.
So I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. We'll check in again as the winter gets closer and moves on to see how things are going, to get an update from you. I'm grateful always for your time.